What's up, everybody? I'm Shane from Ferocious Fatherhood, here to do another 30 for 30 episode. My guest today, Dinash from Fatherhood First. Dinash, man, I'm super happy that you're here. Thanks for joining us all the way from Buffalo, man.
Oh man, I appreciate you inviting me. Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to meet with you, and hopefully we have a good conversation.
Yeah, man, I'm really looking forward to this. I know it's a little bit earlier. I'll say it's 6:30 out here in Utah. It's probably about 8:30 out there. So
Yeah, but I'm an early bird. But you still got to get things going, so that's where I'm
yeah,
at.
man, still got to do it, right? Cool. So your organization, Fatherhood First, take a little bit of time, kind of introduce that to the folks, kind of what you do, what that is, and then we'll get into this, man.
Sure. Again, my name is Dinash Lal, and I guess created Fatherhood First with the intent of initially when I was having my first child, looking around, not getting as much feedback in terms of guidance and support, thinking that it'd be nice if we had a manual of sorts, of somebody helping us figure out how we're going to go about doing what we do. And of course, there's literature out there. There's all tons of books on fathering and fatherhood, and they're great. But I felt like that I was missing kind of a Batman utility belt. I didn't have something that I can access. So I thought that, hey, the initial thought is, look, I'll raise some money and I'll get certified and trained on fatherhood and parenting skills from a evidence-based curriculum. And that was a good start. I was trying to raise some money because it costs some money to get trained. I thought it would benefit me, and then in return, if I'm raising money, I'll give it to the community as a benefit, because I'm a public administrator by education and experience. I work in the public sector, from NGOs, nonprofits, municipal government. So I'm all about community oriented and trying to do things, and especially when I became a father, I became even that much more dedicated to community, because my children are going to be in this community, and I'd like to improve it so that they and other children and everyone else can enjoy it. So I thought I would give back in terms of, I'll do a workshop every month or something, occupy some space in a public library or any other community forum. But in doing the work, I learned that, let me take a step back. We deployed a 6-month pilot program at a downtown library here in Buffalo, the Central Library, where I would come in on Thursday nights from 4 to 8, set up shop, bring food that I prepared, healthy, hopefully, and have a space for parents in general, but men specifically, to kind of get together and discuss whatever is on their mind, learn some skills, have an opportunity to be in a educationally enriched environment like a library, and be there with their children. So children would be there as well. You can do activities with your children, or you can just spend some time with other men. And I learned a lot from it. The pilot program was designed to kind of see what the need was, because I didn't want to replicate anything that other people were doing. Other people are doing things geared towards men and fathers in particular. And so by doing this experience, the 6 months pilot program, we were able to kind of extract information. And when I say we, I was guided by a very good friend of mine, who, he kind of went all in. He had his family participate. His wife and daughter provided, I guess, classes and tutorial and activities for the kids. It was a great experience. We didn't get a ton of people or anything like that. The idea was to see what the need was. How can we be of benefit? And then pulling from that, I arrived at certain concepts and themes that I wanted to push forward. And one of those things was, the concept of Fatherhood First is essentially to make best use of your skills as a parent and caregiver and whatnot, but also to maximize the experience of fatherhood. What I mean by that is, it's one of my boys now. I had to snap to get him out of here. Doing something. That's a dog training, I guess. I don't know. What I was saying was, I'm keen on trying to maximize the fatherhood experience. Everybody's always talking about, or at least there's a sense in the culture, in the discourse, public discourse, that then of course there's that fathers need to be involved,
Mhm.
And it ranges from negative to positive kind of outlooks. But I want us to kind of look at it a little bit differently in that let's take advantage of what is supposed to be the most beneficial, most valuable experience in your life, your
Mhm.
relationships, right? That's what from what I've read and from all the religious texts I read and from all the, I guess, things that are worthwhile in your life type of teachings is that, your relationships is what's going to matter. And what more important, more valuable relationship than that between a parent and a child, a father and a son or a daughter.
Mhm.
So I just want, and it's not, just a slight different way of looking at it. And I'm trying to maximize how I can appreciate it fully and take advantage of it. And it sounds, I'm using words that are selfish somewhat, but I think I think it's okay to be. I think that I don't want to just be there for my kids
Mhm.
and not experience the benefit of being there for your kids. I don't
Yeah,
want to
absolutely.
be run down and torn apart by the experience. I want to be fully present and experience it
Mhm.
and appreciate it and say, that was worthwhile. I don't want to just be playing with the kids and they're having fun. I want to have fun too.
Yeah.
It's kind of how I'm looking at it, if that makes
That
sense.
that's yeah, absolutely. That's really cool that you guys started. I was talking with a couple other fathers that I talked to throughout this. They're like, yeah, when I first had a kid, programs weren't really there, so I decided that it was time to start one. So that's really awesome that you just started. Like you got down to the library for an hour or a couple hours on a Thursday night. That's really awesome to hear, and
Yeah.
I love the fact that we're just starting. I think that's so important for our kids to see, because your kids will see that when they have a goal, hey, all I gotta do is start. We can figure this out as we go. I don't have to have a
Right.
perfect plan. Done is
Right.
better than perfect, if perfect ain't done, type of deal. That's really
Right. And
awesome.
again, we didn't get much traction, but we got some positive feedback after the fact in terms of I had a lot of friends reach out and say, hey, when you still doing that thing?
Hmm.
They never showed up. Right?
Right.
Your friends won't show up, but that's okay. The idea wasn't to kind of like come out the gates and say, hey, we got this thing. Make sure you come out. Well, our
Hmm.
livelihood depends on it. It does. what
Yeah.
what this is a passion project. What I mean? What I'm trying to do is again, uh, be around men, good men who want to do right and do well by their children, but also enjoy the experience at the same time.
Hmm. It's kind of funny that you bring that up, because I feel like a lot of people want the help, but then a lot of men aren't willing to go and get it when it's there, when it's provided. I mean, that's certainly been, I've been guilty of that. Like I've been sitting there like, man, I want someone to help me, but I'm not going to ask anyone to help me. Like y'all need to just read my mind and figure this out. So
That's applicable across the board. When that comes to
yeah, absolutely.
exercise, that comes to
Hmm.
diets and eating lifestyles. It's applicable across the board. And you know, if you see that in one area, you're very likely seeing it in others. So
Hmm.
the camaraderie, the fellowship with other men is a tremendous benefit. You should do that because they can help you. Iron sharpens iron.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Cool, man. Hey, so let's start getting in these questions. So obviously you got some kids. Kind of what's like your background? What was your childhood like? Was your father in your life? How many kids do you currently have? What ages? And we'll just go from there.
Sure. Two boys, 7. They both just in the month, last month and last week turned 7 and 10.
Okay, nice.
And yeah, and I guess I'm born and raised in Queens. My my father immigrated from India. He was commissioned. Um, he's got this whole mythical kind of story, and I don't know what's true or not because a lot of it's plausible. Then some of it's like it sounds a little weird, but um, I'll start with him. I was told, right, and there's some uh, possibility that it's true. I was told that he left his home when he was 5 on his own accord, kind of not
Oh wow.
fully cared for. He grew up in a small village in India, and he kind of just left and went to the big city in New Delhi. And he ended up there initially picking up cow excrement for a living, right? Yeah,
Hmm.
cleaning up because cows
Hmm.
are sacred in India. And then he worked his way into a private, like a country club. He picked up he used to be like the tennis ball catcher or runner,
Okay.
playing tennis. And then he got into the kitchen and he worked his way up from the kitchen, became head chef, and then got the attention of the American company, and they commissioned him to come through. So that's like right after, there was a lot of kind of a Asian ban. I forget the name of the Immigration and Nationality Act of '65 that kind of lifted a lot of the Asian ban policies in the U.S. So he was one of the people to come in within. I think he came in the early '70s, maybe '75, '75, and he was the chef. So he spent 5 years in the States by himself while his wife and my oldest brother were still in India. And then when he brought them over 5 years later, within that 5 years, young guy, new country, making more money than you can imagine. I imagine he had a lot of experiences that I hope to unpack with him one day.
Yeah.
But fast forwarding, when he brought my mother and my brother, they set up shop in municipal housing projects in Queens, and that's where that's where I was born. I was born, a block away from the projects that I grew up in. So the guys, we're well above the ability to live somewhere else. I think the initial plan was to do what the housing projects were designed to do, which is get on your feet and then transition out. But we never got to that transition part because the household kind of wasn't able to maintain and stay together. So my parents ended up having a divorce. My father took off, and I was raised by my mother and 3 older brothers.
Oh, wow, okay. So when that happened, kind of about what age were you, and how much influence did your father have in your life at that point? And then after the divorce, was he still pretty influential?
I don't know exactly what age, especially because there was kind of like a transition period where he would come and go.
Okay.
There was a lot of that going on, so I'm not exactly sure when he would have permanently have left, but he was kind of always positioned as the perpetrator, So I was the youngest, and all I wanted to do was to kind of have some peace in the household. I'm scared, if anything, and so his absence was felt, but I didn't have enough of the positive experiences with him. I mean, I had positive experiences with him, but I didn't have enough to hold on to. And that eventually the absence being felt, and then not having enough of the positive rhetoric around and the experiences to match it, kind of combined to create a level of resentment, and that turned into anger. And then you get this whole unnecessary phase in men's development nowadays where they're resentful of their fathers. And then hopefully, I think, I don't know for sure, anecdotally, I think it changes once people have children. Now, my attitude was changing before I had children, but it firmly changed because I didn't know the dynamics between marriage and household, and married kids. That there's a lot there that people, I think, men need to share with younger men who are not in those stages yet, because they need to be prepared. Be prepared to take on this massive responsibility that has tremendous benefits, but we downplay the benefits because we don't have the words to articulate what they are. And because we lack the words to articulate. When we don't know how to say it, we don't have to use it in our language, everyday discourse, and then you end up just focusing on what you do know. Yeah, the kids, oh, I got to go pick them up, and like that. I don't like that. That type of energy is self-defeating. This is not a burden. I don't want my parenting experience to be a burden. There's aspects of it that are, I mean, yesterday kind of sucked. The morning sucked. But we made up for it in the afternoon. We had to make a conscious decision to make it up for it in the afternoon. We had to say, how are we going to do the rest of this?
Yeah, that is such an important part, because I hear, like, right now, so I got a 6-week-old at home, and right now she is up all night. And rather than, I had to make a very conscious mind shift of like, hey, you know what? I'm not going to say I'm tired anymore. What I want to say is I'm a night stalker. So now throughout the day, I'm not allowed to say, hey, you know what? I'm so tired. Nope, I'm a night stalker. And instantly that just kind of like flips a switch in your mind of like, hey, this is an awesome thing that you're doing. Like I'm kind of like, this is a badass type of deal here. Like, this is
Right, right,
awesome.
right,
And
right,
like those
right,
little
right.
things I think are so important in fatherhood. Like, I think it's so important to like, no, I'm not just showing up to a ball game. No, I'm help building the next generation. And as soon as you start thinking like that, your impact, man, it just explodes. So it's such a good point that you brought up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then when you have that mindset, you also start checking where the people around you, who surround you,
Hmm.
are they reinforcing those messages that you want your children to hear, or are
Yeah.
they not? I mean, are they lackadaisical? Are they meandering through life, or do they
Hmm.
move with purpose and values, live their life through their values? I mean, have
Yeah.
they identified their values? Those things are important, but I don't want to get us off track. What do you got next
No,
here?
no, man, I love it. I love just a natural conversation. So we can talk about anything on this. Cool.
Sure, sure.
So with your father not being there, were there other mm, any sort of positive male or negative male figures in your life that influenced you as a child?
Uh, there must have been, but they weren't impactful enough. But I have identified certain men throughout my life, but I guess more in the I guess beyond childhood, maybe into the high school level. I gravitated towards a professor of mine at the high school level who, a PhD teaching history at New York City High School, is
Hmm.
pretty significant. He really taught me how to read and write. Like he taught me how to read and write and prepared me single-handedly for college.
Hmm.
Um, and then in college, I had another academic advisor, and he's hilarious. Hell, if I'm thinking about him, I might need to reach out to him and just thank him randomly. Uh, he had the energy about him, and what you were describing with Night Stalker, that's kind of the mentality you need to have. You have to have this ability to kind of shift and take it on, not like a burden,
Hmm.
but more of a like I get to do this. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do
Yeah.
it really good too.
Yeah,
I'm gonna do a
man.
magnificent job at it because, and I think that's one thing that you and I have in common because I saw some of your content and you're at the gym, so
Hmm.
you have to be at the gym. So if anybody's
Gotta
gonna get
be.
anything, men need to be in the gym.
They do.
Go
Absolutely.
get in the gym, lift something, run on something, do something, punch
Yeah.
something, do something.
Go pick up something
Um,
heavy and throw it or something.
right, right, because you don't want to be at the gym every day. You don't want to, but
Hmm.
especially one of those days where it's really hard. But that's when you need that shift
Hmm.
and get in there. And before you know it, you're doing more than you planned, and you got exactly what you needed. And then
Hmm.
go enjoy your post workout. And then
Yeah.
when you put your head hits the pillow, you'll knock
Yeah.
out and you'll know you deserved it.
Hmm. Yeah. You're talking
Where
about
was I
working
going
out.
with it?
I'm
Oh,
sorry. Go ahead. No, please.
no, go, please. I just thought of
So,
something that I forgot.
okay. So you're talking about working out, and no matter how tired I've been, when I've done working out, I've never regretted it. I've always got done, be like, hey, I'm really proud of myself for doing that. I think
Right,
that's a
right.
huge thing.
Especially with a time crunch, like, oh man,
Hmm.
I worked out, therefore I can't do this assignment or this project or work on it. All right, well then I'll just whatever. I got to work out,
Yeah.
so I'm good.
Yep. Yeah.
Uh,
Absolutely.
what was it? Oh, the academic advisor. He had this energy about him that kind of reminds me of that type of mentality, but he had it on 24/7, which is crazy. But he took me through real simple things, and I think men need to do this for each other. He said I was having difficulties with the academics, and he was like, he's like, oh, so what's wrong? He's like, well, I get tired, I can't focus. He's like, so you do study. This is how he talks. You're studying, and then you start you're hitting a wall, right? You start getting tired, right? It's like, yeah. He goes, well, do you know what you do? I was like, no. He's like, then you stop. He's like, all right. I was like, all right. And he's like, well, then what? And he's like, well, then you rest. And then when you're done resting, you know what you do? No. He's like, he's like, you get back up. You start going at it again. And then when you get tired again, you stop again. You know what I mean? He's so
Hmm.
he tenacious.
Yeah. That's awesome.
But yeah, that's what he taught me. And it's not rocket science. He just kind of flipped the switch for me and let me see what's possible. And then I
Hmm.
had a tremendous friend now, uh, who I'm not necessarily in contact with, but he's a man that father of four, who's helping me with the pilot program, and it's just guidance. He's 20, 30 years older than me. I don't know, 20 years older than me, but he just provided me with guidance and perspective
Hmm.
and an understanding of what I should be considering and that's so necessary. You know, a great man. You know, when I think of him, I think of, and I'm corny enough to pull from pop culture. So, you know, I pick up the books a lot, but when I put them down, I get to Netflix, and there's this movie, what's it called? Kingdom of Heaven. I don't know if you
Okay.
ever heard of it. It's a Ridley Scott film, and there's a scene where the defeated one king defeats another king. Saladin defeats one of the kings, and this particular king wasn't really much in character, so he questions him before killing him and says, "Were you not close enough to a good king to learn from his example?" And it's like, well, then, yeah, you know, when you have a person that you're in their space and their value, you feel it, you know when you feel their absence. But were you not around good people to take good characters, good, you know, ethical and moral behavior from? And that's what I think about when I see, you know, or I hear, you know, you know, because there's in the vast sphere, in the public discourse, there are segments of the population that are, you know, there is a negative tone to men and fatherhood and fathers in general. And I'm less concerned about combating that, more just doing something like what you're doing, which is speaking towards the positive. Just, hey, there's a place for this, what you're looking for. It's like older generations talking about bad about current music. It's like, first of all, you were doing the same thing. You know, I'm not particularly a huge fan of current music, but that doesn't mean that it sucks. It just means that I'm not cool. And
Yeah,
that's fine. I'm okay. I'm okay not being cool. But you know, you don't have to talk bad about it. Also, what you're looking for, it exists. You're just not exposing yourself to it. And that's what I'm saying with this this kind of fatherhood message and mentality, and particularly for men. Find the spaces. You know, there's one, I'm looking at one, man, and
yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
hopefully, you know, this is a place that I got going on. So, you know, and when you're in travels, find each other, connect,
Yeah,
and build.
yeah, it's so important to have that mentorship from someone who's been there. I mean, even if it's something, who knows what help you're going to need. You could need the smallest little piece of advice. Hey, how do I get my toddler to stop, you know, pooping on the floor? And you know, someone who's, I promise you, someone's been there. And so that mentorship is so important.
Right.
And
And the
then,
perspective, I think, is ideal too.
yeah, and
You
then
know,
from the like,
besides the actual tangible skill or
yeah,
ideas or suggestion, it's like, well, look at it this way, and it'll take a burden off of you.
absolutely. All right, so then what are some of the core values? So you learn those lessons from like maybe your professors and, you know, some other outside influences. What are some of the core values that you incorporate into your fathering style with your kids?
I'm trying very hard to continue to cultivate patience. Um, Patience is a key necessity in making this work. My communication, oh my God, I think I communicate fairly well, but you know, family will tell you how you're not.
You know, that is
So
so true. I also thought the same thing. I thought like, man, I'm really good at talking. And then when my toddler came around, I was like, oh, I'm terrible at communicating. This is just to a 3-year-old. I'm terrible at it.
right. So we got a couple of things going on there. You said you're good at talking, but then the communication aspect is you have to focus on the other part, which is listening, which is one of the significant keys. And then I'm just trying to like figure out what exact core values are there. I honed in on my particular ones, which is like conscientiousness, integrity, discipline, transcendence, and vision. And I focused in on them having explored and had, so I think this is what men should do. Take a step back, see if you can identify your values. If you can't, Google around, figure it out. There's people out there that teach you how to, you know, hone in on what you organically hold as values, and then look for more, add to them, and then kind of just have some set that you can live by, that you can say that at the end of the day, no matter how I feel, this is how I'm going to live. And you try to live up to that standard. And I think that you'll see a tremendous benefit in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And at first it could be a little difficult. I mean, it's definitely not always easy, telling the truth. If integrity is one of yours, it's not always easy telling the truth, especially starting off. But then at some point, it just clicks, and all of a sudden, it's a part of who you are, and you have a harder time not keeping that standard. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And you also
and
want
then
to keep in mind your children. What do you want them
yeah,
to, it's, you really should. And I think it's a real healthy exercise for people, married people, to kind of ask themselves, would I want my son to marry a person like my wife, and would I want my daughter to marry a person like myself, like the type of man I am? I think that's really healthy, because that keeps you continuing to work towards being a better partner and better father and better brother and better everything. Things
yeah,
and consider, we're talking about stuff that's really important, right? We both agree. I think most people who listen to this conversation would agree. But how much time are we actually going to give, right? Because you got competing things going on. You got work, you got career, you got school, you got social relationships, you got all these things going on. And then the thing that you said was the most important, that you were told was the most important, gets like all these leftovers from you,
yeah,
and I really want to turn that on its head. So Fatherhood First also speaks to that. That's it. So I haven't even talked to you about what we do, because we don't do anything at this junction. We're still trying to figure it out. I didn't want to replicate what's already happening. There's gaps in society, in my community, where children's needs are not being met, but particularly because the fathers are not available or capable or supported or of capacity. So when you have those things going on, then you can start plugging in and have a meaningful contribution, as opposed to, I got another fatherhood program and this is what I'm doing, and it's the same old, same old. No. So, I mean, right now, what I can tell you is that we're working on putting together I guess, utilizing today's technology to help support parents in general, but fathers in particular. So that's kind of the most, it'll probably be in the form of an app or even a desktop application that you can use to kind of help you support you in your role as parent. And I guess what I'm going to gear it towards is like treat it like a business to a certain degree. I mean, obviously, don't be devoid of the sentimentality aspect of it, but don't be detached to that extent. But more so, there's some functions that are required to keep this apparatus moving. So let's treat those aspects with a little bit of a business sense, entrepreneurial sense, and then when it's time to be soft and cuddly and wrestle around with the boys, and do that too.
Yeah, I do think that approaching fatherhood almost like a business sense is important. And I'm not necessarily saying like, okay, it'd be boring and you sit down, you have these meetings, but you are intentional about it. If you're a business owner, you're intentional about your business. When you go to college, you're intentional about your studying. It's not really any different. If you're not intentional about being a father, being a dad, it's going to pass you by. And if you're not going to be that influence, somebody else or something else is going to influence your kids. And it might not turn out good. We see that all the time now, gangs and all those influences there.
So you're reminding me of so much when you speak. I mean, I feel like I'm talking too much, right? So you just reminded me of Jocko Willenick. I think this is his name.
I have
extreme ownership. Man, take responsibility for everything. That's a good standard to work toward. I think men should have that in mind. It's like, why did that mess up? Well, it messed up because there's a weakness in your team, but no, you need to identify that weakness so you can strengthen that weakness, so it's no longer a weakness. Therefore, you can avoid those type of results you were trying to avoid.
Yeah,
I think that's a wonderful outlook.
I mean, for any father who hasn't read his books, I highly recommend it. You can definitely apply it to your fathering. So I don't know if you can see, but let's see, I guess on this side, behind this picture, I got 3 of his books right there, and one of them is Extreme Ownership. I highly recommend it. I mean, you're dead on. If you can own every single aspect, even if it's something that's so out of your control, and just own it, then you can influence it, and then it can be you turned around for good. It doesn't matter what it is. You can own some aspect of it. You're responsible for some part of it.
Well,
So
consider the outlook. If you look at it that way, it becomes a challenge. So how can you make the worst of the worst better? How can you view it better? That doesn't mean to ignore it. Doesn't mean to ignore any pain associated with it or sadness.
Hmm.
You deal with it. You feel, you experience it fully, but you
Hmm.
don't stay stuck there. You don't want to get stuck
Yeah.
on any one of these emotions. You want to be able to transition out of it, transcend, one of my
Hmm.
values.
Your values. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to get out of it so that you can continue moving forward.
Hmm.
Uh,
Okay. So you said that. Walter Bond, he talks a lot about, when you hit something, throw yourself a pity party, give yourself an opportunity to feel what it is that you're feeling, but then that's it. He says he gives you 3 days. After 3 days, your pity party's over. Every single thing that you talk about in regards to this, it better be a solution or a way forward. So I try to apply that, with our kids here. There's something my son's going through, like, all right, cool, this really sucks. All right, yep, get it out, complain for a little bit, and then just move on. Move on. There's no point staying stuck there. That transcendence, that's really cool. I don't think I've heard somebody say that yet. So that's really awesome. We'll start
yeah.
incorporating that and really start to formulate that in my own life.
Then
So
that's
what are
how it's
some of
done.
the
That's it. We just did it
yeah,
right there.
yeah,
We just did
absolutely.
it.
I got talking to my wife the other day about how, with doing these interviews, I want to push this out to everybody, but I'm learning so much from, like, every single person that I talk to. I've learned, just in, the week or whatever that I've been doing this, I've learned so much. To me, that's so important, and I can be way more beneficial in my household just by having these conversations. So I love it. I love hearing the
Exactly.
advice.
Yeah, like lifelong learner here. So the
Hmm.
idea is like, hey, I'm going to learn about fathering, parenting. I'm going to be
Hmm.
in this space. Everything that I'm learned, I'm going to be able to share with other people. And then
Hmm.
it slowly morphs into something else. Same thing with, working out. You're working
Hmm.
out, you hit your goals, and then it's like, well, you're still working out, and now you got new goals, and it's developing. And then it's, well, why am I going over there to that gym when I could just make this gym? So I had a gym a few years back,
Hmm.
maintained it for 3 years, a small studio space, and it was great. I had my own gym, and now I have an idea and thoughts of, my mind works entrepreneurially, so I would move in that direction when the time
Hmm.
is right. I like to do a lot of different things, and that would be one of those things. But the idea of, if I'm doing it for myself, well, if it's benefiting me, why not share that benefit of others?
Hmm. Absolutely. That was one of the reasons that I started Ferocious Fatherhood, was that I saw, from my father was really strong in my life. He was a really, active father. And talking to some of my friends, like, oh, you don't have that? You didn't have that? All right, let's get this information out. Other people need to be hearing this. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
cool. So what were some of the hardest problems that you faced as a father? Oh, wait, I don't even know where we are anymore. I don't know if we covered that or not.
No, we didn't. But I could probably think a thing or two. One is the resistance is real. You get resistance from your children, your spouse, your community, um, and you need to just recognize that that's there. That's a
Hmm.
constant. Don't hyper focus on it. Just highlight it and put it aside,
Yeah.
because uh, that's just a obstruction to what you're going to want to do anyway. If you
Hmm.
conform to that, then you won't be able to not only able to express yourself, but also won't be able to manifest the things that you want to see in your family, household, and in your children. So I had to kind of recognize that you're going to get all these conflicting things, but that's okay.
Hmm.
I because you don't want to spend time trying to take on everyone's battles.
Hmm.
uh, they are everyone is battling all the time with something. I'm looking for more synergistic collaboration. I'm
Yeah.
looking for folks like yourself who,
Hmm.
oh, you're doing that, cool, I'll help you with that, because
Hmm.
I'm doing something similar. So let me, if I can come by on Tuesday and paint this wall for you and it's a help, great. That's kind of the mentality I think it's worthwhile to have. um, Everything's not based in reality.
Hmm.
Everything's not based in reality, meaning, like, children might be having a perspective, you might have a perspective. You got to leave a little buffer room for kind of like
Yeah.
regrouping, grounding, and getting back to a point of a position and perspective of leadership. You have to kind of like say, okay, all right, that's going on, but that's not necessarily real, so let's see what we can do to get to a better space. It doesn't have to be solved or completely resolved. It just needs to be improved. And if you can improve on it, then you have some work to do. And if you have work to do, you can break work down into an incremental unit, right? So you don't have to take on a big behemoth. You can take on a little bit at a time. And if you're doing a little bit at a time and you're giving it all your effort, see, one thing is my children gotten to a point where they are figuring out different arguments and angles to try to resist, what we're asking them to do. And, it becomes daddy strict. Daddy is demanding perfection. No, son, I'm not demanding perfection. I'm demanding that you show effort and think. I need you to think. If you show me that you're thinking and you're providing effort, no matter the results, I can see that you're trying. And if you're trying, we're there, man. I'm your coach. I'm going to support you. But if you're just resisting and looking for easy ways out, well, that's not a value that we hold in this household. So we're going to have to work through this. Like I was here for 2 hours because my son was refusing to eat his apple. When you get to a point of battle of the wills, you want to first avoid it as much as you can, because you don't want to overpower your children just with your sheer force, right? You don't want to just like scare them into it. What you want to do is encourage. But at some point it stops. And now it becomes, all right, look, well, I'm not backing down. And he's going to be resistant, completely, obstinate. And so, and this is a 7-year-old. So, this is the fight of the day. So,
man, that struggle's real.
That's the schedule is thrown out the window. The gloves are off. We're going to figure this out. You're going to eat this damn apple. So he ate it. It took like an hour and a half. It was off. We didn't get a chance to go to the gym. We didn't get a chance to go do a little bit of the activities that we had planned. And that happened yesterday, and it was a miserable morning. But in the afternoon, we came back and we had to figure out, how do we want to proceed? And that's when you tap into your wife, who didn't experience that misery, but she's getting the after effects of it. And you tap into her to help you out in terms of kind of help mitigate this, help mediate this a little bit. You know what I mean? Mediate in the sense that you're not emotionally charged like I'm emotionally charged, and they're emotionally charged. So come in and kind of give us all some perspective and order our communication and our thoughts so that we're not just butting heads. And we ended it with a round of Uno. And there was still some resistance, which then we transitioned into, it's not nap time because we don't really do that, but go lay down.
Quiet time, relax time,
Yeah. And then coming out of that, it got much better. People got something to eat, and we transitioned into just a better experience overall. I checked out, just started stretching, just stretching, and stretch, knock out for 5 minutes and wake back up and stretch some more. And then I think that worked completely. I think we were in a way better state, and we salvaged the rest of the afternoon into the evening, and it worked. Stuck it out, stay there, be there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm sure that, I don't know if maybe in the moment it's incredibly hard to see, but there's some sort of positive aspect that comes out of that. So right now, my son having a hard time falling asleep. And when, the other night I was in there for like 3 hours, just sitting there trying to put him to sleep and not having it. And I got too focused on trying to put him to sleep that I started missing, the good aspects. Okay, here I'm spending more time with my son. Here, for about an hour, he just laid down and he just held my hand. And at some point, that's not going to happen anymore. I mean, he's going to move out of that stage where he doesn't want to hold my hand. And so I really got to focus on, like, reflecting on it later. I was like, man, how sweet was that? And how did I ruin it by not, just being positive and just like, oh, I understand that you don't want to sleep, but here, let's sit here and let's hold hands. And I could take away that positive aspect of it. So that was something, I don't know if maybe if you saw that in the moment.
Absolutely. No, not at all. Not at the moment. not yesterday. But no, I hear you though. And a man that can remind you of that, that man's good, because that is key to have those. We need the support that we can give each other is that daily reminder that, hey, heads up, man, is the last time he's going to want to really kind of cuddle with you or
Hmm.
what you deem as interrupting your sleep.
Yeah, yeah.
You might want to just take advantage of that. That's so necessary and important. Yeah.
Hmm. I think a ton of people miss that. A ton of fathers miss that. They get so focused on the problem that they're missing the
Well,
positive aspects from it.
that's another aspect that I've identified, and I think that should be shared widely, is that this concept of the momentum of the day takes you away from what you cherish and value the most.
Hmm.
If you
Hmm.
had an opportunity, like I'm originally from New York City, and there's this buzz in New York City, right? Everybody's doing something. There ain't no slow walking or strolling. Everybody's
Hmm.
walking with a purpose, and even if you don't have a purpose, you got some sprint to your steps
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Uh, and that's you get caught up in that. You don't get an opportunity. I always tell folks in downstate, like, you should come up to Western New York and Buffalo, get a breather from
Hmm.
from New York City, so that you can kind of reflect and have a moment of breath and think about things,
Hmm.
that so you can kind of see if this is what you wanted to do, or is it something that you're just kind of caught up in. And
Hmm.
the momentum of the day is the great disruptor. It's
Yeah.
always kind of throwing you off. And if you don't take control of that, if you don't, grab some reins and get some control, you're just going to be a victim of the poor results that you're going to continue to
Yeah.
see.
Yep.
And
You're at the mercy of the day. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
right,
I mean, I'm a firm believer. You wake up, usually working out's one of the first things I do. I'll work out sometimes, 4:30 just before I go to work. Because otherwise, you go to work, you come home, and then you're into the day owns you at that point. I mean,
yeah,
like you
yeah,
said,
because then you'll have,
dinner and all that stuff. Yeah.
if everybody has the same excuses across the board, they're very stereotypical. Why aren't you
Hmm.
working out, or why aren't you eating better, or why aren't you taking care of your health, or why aren't you, all those things, which are built through discipline,
Hmm.
one of my values,
Hmm.
is if everybody has all those same things in common, then you need to figure out how you're going to break through those regular things. I don't work out because I go to work and I got to take care of my kids. Yeah, just like everybody
Yeah.
else.
Right. Right. And every single other person in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, which means that you just have to change it up, whatever it
Hmm.
is. You have to change some things up and make it
Hmm.
happen, because it's your body's not looking at it like, oh, okay, oh, you got kids, all right, well, cool. We're
Yeah. Yeah.
gonna,
Take the day
we're,
off. You got.
yeah,
You've been up since 1 a.m. Take the day off. Go ahead.
yeah, right. So I don't know. People need, I guess, it's a worthwhile pursuit. It doesn't have to be um, labeled with all this negativity. It's like, you woke up at 4:30 and got that workout in. I'm pretty sure you didn't feel bad about it. You know what I mean?
Nah.
Yeah, and your body did have some lagging at some time throughout the day because of tiredness, but
Hmm.
I don't really get tired. You know what I mean? I get tired, of course. But it's, are you mentally tired? No, I
Hmm.
mean, that's still buzzing and working and going. And then when
Hmm.
that needs to rest, you meditate, take a rest, whatever you got to do.
Hmm.
Like my academic advisor told me, get
Yeah.
tired,
Yeah.
rest.
Yeah. That's a really good point. All right. So obviously you've got your kids there with you today. So what are
I
some other
do.
ways that you stay actively engaged with your children? Do you bring them to your workplace often?
So the transition I mentioned earlier, we've decided to fully fledged do home instruction. So
Okay.
we're in Lal Academy, and so the world's our campus, and everywhere we go, we
Nice.
have an opportunity to kind of learn. So that's kind of where we're at. So I bring them into the office on the weekends, but not. I try to find new locations where it's going to be kind of conducive to staying focused and having a study
Mhm.
session, and then intermixing it with an activity you find something worthwhile to do. That's kind of how I'm you know going about it. It's not an afterthought. It's not what's
Right.
left over. It's built
Hmm.
into my day. It's
Hmm.
built in with my work as well. So if I'm doing something and I need 2 hours to myself for a meeting or anything like that, I have to consider them, where they're going to be, what they're going to be doing.
Hmm.
um and that's just kind of how I'm rolling now.
Hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. What are like it's like I know throughout my daily routine, I try to incorporate my son as much as possible. Like going to the gym. I tech, come on, Jeremiah, we're going to the gym. We're not going to go to the gym to watch TV. You're going to see, you're going to work out too. I'll give you a little weight. Do you incorporate little things like that with your children?
Yeah, yeah. You know, the challenge there is I'm competing with some aspects of the culture, but also I'm competing with the technology as well.
Mhm,
So what's, I mean, you know this, if you get a phone, they both have phones.
mhm. Yeah,
You can't compete with droning off in
yeah,
front of this thing
yeah. Yep.
versus anything else. You know,
Mhm,
only thing you can beat that with is like a food, right?
mhm.
And that only works with one of my kids. The other one could care less about what
Yeah.
you're going to take away or give them. You know, but I can disrupt screen time with that, but I'm trying to kind of wean them off because an abrupt transition would
Mhm,
cause them to be that much more resistant. So the idea is like, all right, they need to start understanding that there's a time and place for this, and everything else is living.
mhm.
You
Yeah.
know, be out in the world. So yes, I do. You know, I'm going to go to the gym and bring them with us, and they're going to do their physical activity in the space that they got, and
Mhm,
but they'll have access to us and seeing us. And oftentimes I work out in the house so that they can see too
mhm,
and participate. I need them to be around the things that I'm going to acclimate them to eventually.
mhm.
Library's big with us. We go to the library all the time. Our mission is to visit every library in the county.
Oh, wow, that's
And
awesome.
yeah, we're gonna make a thing out of it.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
sweet.
I want them to go down. I want them to go everywhere they go. I want them to visit the libraries and the municipal buildings
Mhm,
and get an understanding, and then do comparisons. Um, that is all, and I try to focus on those things that are available at that level, because we know we're going to be spending money on them, and
mhm,
let's reserve the money for things that are outside of our reach. Lego
mhm,
World is outside of our reach, so let's pay for a ticket and do that. But
mhm,
the library is always free. You know?
mhm,
You can go to a public town hall for free and see how a law is made.
mhm,
And it doesn't have to be like studied, and you don't have to take notes at that time, but be exposed to it. Exposure was a
mhm,
really big thing. Oh, another one, college campuses. You know,
mm,
if they're not
mhm.
gated, walk in
Yeah,
and do a study session where the college students are doing the session. Now they're all like sitting up. Now they're, you know, they want to look cool. They got their headphones around their neck and they're on
yeah,
their
yeah.
computers. So now they feel like college students, and that's great, because a kid shouldn't um, experience college only when they go to college. That's one of the worst things I've seen. Is like, oh, your first time you step foot on a college campus is when you went to college. That's crazy. You
Oh,
should
wow.
be
Yeah,
in.
that's a really good point.
It's insane. I mean, it's insane because I only started going to college campuses in high school, but there
Mhm,
was nothing really stopping me before that. And I
mhm,
started going there because I always had this kind of trajectory. I was like, I'm just going to use education to get the hell out of where I was so I
mhm,
can do things. And it's a great it's a great world because college students like kids too.
mm. Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
they because that gives them something different, and what I mean, and they interact, and you get to monitor and watch college kids interacting with your kids. And my kids are kind of social and very
Mhm.
talkative, and they'll start explaining things. I got one kid who's really into ACs and vacuums, and
Oh,
um,
wow.
yeah, no, just randomly. He's just like, he'll tell you about vacuums. He'll ask you about your ACs and what you're working with, and but it's,
Man, that's really interesting. I haven't like thought of that. Like I talked with my wife, and we definitely want to get my son more into the library. I mean, I have a collection of books, so I'm I don't hide those at all. They're not like up in a closet or nothing. They're out where my son can see them. He has a little bookshelf. But man, what a good idea to just get your kids involved in maybe like a local library program. Like how beneficial is that to them? I can remember doing summer reading programs, and man, the stuff I learned just from doing that is awesome. I could
yeah.
name every single dinosaur because that's what I like reading that summer. So
Yeah, yeah. It's the same thing with working out and diets. It's like,
mhm,
do what you can. Don't tell me what you can't do.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
hmm
Oh, oh, being a vegan, I can't do that. Well, nobody's asking you to, unless
hmm
somebody's asking you to.
yeah, yeah,
But do what you can to make the
hmm
incremental changes so that you can move forward. Like, you don't have to full-fledged sign up for a library program, but you can just step into a library, be there.
yeah. You know,
If you have
get a library
a
card.
call, yeah, you got a call to make and you got your kid, a business call, go to the library, have your call, get your earbuds, let the
Hmm
kid explore on his own. And you can kind of just monitor your kid from afar while you're on the phone.
Yeah,
That's just a step in the right direction.
that's
And
awesome,
then
man.
what kid doesn't want a wallet where you can put a card in,
Yeah,
make it
you give them
easy.
that little piece of ownership, and they love it. That's something I do with my son is he in the gym, so I have a smaller home gym when I don't need as much weights. I can just hit that real quick. And
Right.
he has very small 5 pound. He's got like a 5 pound kettlebell, like a little foam roller, um, and like two little 5 pound dumbbells, and those are his. And he has a little corner, and however he wants to organize his corner, he owns it. That's his. He owns that corner. After we're done working out, all right, let's clean up. And however he cleans it up, I don't go behind him and fix it. I just, okay, is that the standard you would set for cleaning it? Cool. That's how we'll set it up that way every time. And I let him do it, however it is. Sometimes it's silly, but
Yeah.
that ownership is so important. It's like that library card, that's so important. Just taking that, like, I own this. This is me. This teaches me responsibility.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's
And then
awesome.
again, another tidbit that you gave me, a daily reminder that you just gave me again, which is, let them have their own, that ownership thing,
Hmm.
uh, you know, and don't come around and fix it afterwards. That's key too.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, so just like, that if that's how you wanted it, cool. And then learn to live with it if you're that type.
Hmm.
I tend to be that type where that's bugging me. I gotta fix that.
Hmm.
So
That's something that used to bug me a lot. Was we will have my son clean up his dishes, and I'll take all the dishes and the cold stuff, and I'll put it on the corner where he can reach it. Then he goes and takes it, and he used to bug me because he would just grab it and just throw it in the sink. Like, yeah, but what do you expect from a 2-year-old? Of course, that's what he's going to do. But what lesson are you instilling in that? When he's 4, then he'll learn, hey, I need to scrape this out into the trash, and then I can throw this in the sink. And then when he's 6, like, hey, I can scrape this out, I can rinse this off, and put it right in the dishwasher. And those lessons are way more important than me getting angry because he just threw it in the sink. Way more
And
important.
then harping on anything is only going to
Hmm.
strengthen their resistance. And that's
Yeah.
what I'm that's like that's what I'm challenged with. That's what I'm dealing with.
Hmm.
Nobody's got this on lock.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's an evolution you're developing along the way.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So Dinash, what's one last piece of advice that you got for fathers? Maybe anything we haven't touched on or anything that you want to reiterate before we wrap this up, man?
Um, Man, that's tough. One last piece of advice.
Or anything that we didn't get to expand enough earlier, or anything at all, man?
I guess I go back to take ownership. I guess that makes sense to me. I think if you are in control of how you want this to be, and do you want to look back on this and say that it was such a burden? Do you want to have language that speaks to the burden and negativity, or do you want to create language that encourages and creates a mindset and an outlook that's positive and enriching? I
Hmm.
want Fatherhood First is all about in making this experience enriching and worthwhile.
Hmm. Yeah, man, that's so awesome. All right, Dinash. Hey, man, Fatherhood First. I love it. I love hearing what it is that you're doing. It's really cool to hear how you're being out and about and active in the community. I want to take a moment and say thanks for coming on here. I appreciate it. I know what I've learned from you. I mean, developing that transcendence is definitely something that I want to be working on. So, hey, man, I really want to say thanks for being on here. I really do appreciate it, man.
I appreciate it right back, man. We'll be in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, brother. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, man.
You too.
All right,
Peace.
later.